Hi everyone, I'm Laura,
I'm Steph.
and welcome in the Sister Circle podcast. The circle where, as women, we share,
Learn,
grow,
heal.
and thrive.
Today, so I'm going to do the Ignorable Country. Today, I acknowledge the traditional owner of the Gadigal land from the Eora Nation on which we are recording today. I pay my respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging, and the Aboriginal elders of other community who may be here today. Thank you.
Well, today it's particularly special because it's our our really first podcast.
Yes.
So we just starting, Steph and I, running this sister circle, and we are so looking forward to just like a deep dive into so many topics. Steph and I, just before recording, we had a really big debate about how we are in during breakup and like our attachment style and all like it reflects with our wound and our wound attracts some different wound, like so really interesting, and like I'm just looking forward to be able to share.
And so should you all be looking forward to shares, to be listening to some of our very exciting conversation that we're going to be having in the circle.
Yeah, I'm excited. And so then, like, the principle of the Sister Circle podcast is we wanna, if you're new, like ourselves, we wanna deep dive into different type of topic. As women, especially for women, designed by women. Sometimes we will have like a male guest, and sometimes we will like kind of apprehend some male topic, but mostly like with our perspective as women, and hopefully with the perspective of different women. We will run mini series where we will go through like a specific topic. The first series is actually the power of healing stories, and we will just explain what it is. But mostly, a series will be 4 episodes. The first two, Steph and I will deep dive into a topic. The third one, we will have a guest that is related to the topic, and we will be able to run through our question, but also the question that we receive from the auditors. And then the fourth episode mostly will be what we call the pulse. We will just check on each other, see how we are, since we've been recording every 4 weeks. Since we've been recording, and every 4 weeks we will just be like checking how we are, how the world is.
Indeed. So this women's circle, traditionally, as some of you may know, if you've attended women's circle before, it's a space for women to come and share and learn story. Many traditions use women's circle for women to learn, as what our tagline is at the beginning, to learn, grow, heal, thrive, by sharing stories from elders to young people. So this is why we created this space, as we saw in some of our women gathering, we saw how beneficial it was for us to just do that. So we would like to invite you all to join us in this circle from wherever you get your podcast. So first, we would like to start by sharing a little bit about ourselves. So maybe Laura, would you like to tell our listeners just a brief introduction? I'm sure they're going to get to know more and more of us as we go along, sharing our experiences and our stories. So just a brief story. Who are you? Where have you come from? How have you ended up in Sydney? In the Gadigal land?
My name is Laura. I'm 36 years old, and I'm originally from France, as most of you have picked up with the accent probably. I'm actually living in Australia, Sydney, in the beautiful Manly. I arrived 10 years ago in Australia and really loved it. Kind of like dig my hole here, decided to stay. And yeah, like I'm a corporate lady. I work for the energy industry. Um, I am really active. I like to do a lot of things, but also I think I like to be really deep as well, and I like a great conversation. I met Stephanie 10 years ago. She was doing my hair. Stephanie has this power of like, like for example, with all her stories, the stories that she can share through client, people that she meet, and also like being able to relate to what we tell her, and then like I gain so much from the session. So most of the time, I always say when she come do my hair, it's my therapy moment.
And it
Sharing.
also takes a great conversationalist person to bounce off each other. My name is Stephanie. I am a hairdresser and I'm also a psychotherapist. Living here in the land, on the Gadigal land of Bondi Junction. I came to Sydney about 11 years ago because I just needed to get out of my environment, which was London town. Nothing wrong with London. Absolutely love London. But I spent a good chunk of my life in London. So from primary school all the way through to adulthood, I left London when I was 29 years old. And I just could not I just found myself not growing. I wasn't growing at all in that environment. I did all that I could pretty much there. But I didn't know how to make a change in my life. I used to have this vision of driving into a brick wall when I was driving into work because I just exhausted everything in that environment. So one day it was drastic decision. It was so sudden, but not really sudden. It was almost like the sign I was looking for. I decided to move to Sydney, and I told myself and my nervous system that it was only going to be for a year, and it ended up 11 years down the line I'm still here. So, and here I am. But yeah, that's just a little bit of my story, and I guess part of that story is also the reason why I'm bringing it into the circle is because often we do feel stuck in where we are and we just don't know where, and life is giving us signs all the time. But at that point I made the decision to leave because I knew that I could at least trust myself. I'd been independent since I was 17, so I knew I could at least trust myself to get a job and pay for rent, and I knew I could do those stuff, and I wasn't quite sure if I wouldn't end up sleeping in a ditch somewhere drunk. So before leaving or self-sabotage myself with alcohol or drugs, even though I never done drugs, but who knew? I did not know. So what I did was before I left, I got myself a tattoo on my arm saying, I love me. Just a reminder to myself that take care of you. Yeah, that's my story.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And we love you. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
I think what would be good, especially since like this first episode is slightly different because it's our first one and it's our intro, but it's also related to the theme of the series, like which is the healing power of stories.
Yeah.
And I think like we wanted to spend a bit of time as well to talk about why we wanted to start this podcast. And why it was really important for us. Do you want to start or?
Well, yeah, you can start. I mean, Laura held a really, really great event for Valentine's Day, which just wasn't. It wasn't just about us crying about having no man.
Absolutely not. It was so powerful and empowering.
Or pretending girl power. We don't need a man. That wasn't the point of the night. The point of the night was that we come together and really look introspectively. Well, that's what the prep was. Look introspectively of what your life had been in the last year and more you are hoping for 2025?
And yes, like it was about reflecting about ourselves and also ourselves in relationship and ourselves not being in relationship. What does that mean? What was our highlight, the low light? How was our year? But it wasn't just focused on like the fact that there was a partner or not. And then I think this Valentine's night was really powerful, because we were like all those women meeting together and then like having so much fun, sharing so many funny stories, because like, well, you know, like the life of a single woman is really funny sometimes, especially when she's out there. And then I had everyone to prepare a dating wrap up for 2024, where we will like go. Everyone gets super creative. So I normally like there was like no instruction on the format. It could be either like a PowerPoint for the corporate girlies, but some were really artistic and they did a poem. Some come with a book. Steph just came with just a mind, you know.
Oh my God. But I'm also, my mind is organized mess up there.
And I think there was some really beautiful and vulnerable moment. And personally, even though like, you know, like all those women were my friend and I knew them and like, you know, like we've been talking for such a long time, it was really interesting, like saying some of the stories, listening some of the stories, and then women reacting to some of the stories.
Yeah.
And I think it was so healing for like some of the women that was like receptive to this message, because they were feeling so related to the situation.
Yeah.
And you could feel like, you know, the vibes in the room, and that was so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt similar sentiment. I mean, I said to Laura, I said we have to have a bigger event for the next year and invite more people, and I was like, no one wants to share in public, and she was right. No, not many people want to share, but I said, but we have to do something about it. We have to do something like where we can share this, that we can make this bigger, we can reach more people, more women to do this. This wasn't just about meeting up, getting drunk and just obsessing about relationship. This was also about finding our way. Right? It was also about finding our way in every aspect of our lives, whether it's financial, career, motherhood, you know, friendship, relationships. Like, it was just finding our way. The world is so complicated.
Like, something that I remember from this night was that there is really strong, like, we have an amazing community and a group of friends where there's all those beautiful women with really strong opinions and, like, you know, like strong ideas of how they want to run their life. And they're quite different.
And I mean, especially some of us who are super independent, to a detriment sometimes. I'm sure you'll learn that about us soon in this podcast. Like, a lot of us are super independent, and we do things. We go too much. We take too much of an extra mile to get things done and not ask for help, without knowing that it is our right to do that. So, yes, do feel free as listeners to also participate.
Share, sister, share.
Yeah, share, absolutely share.
So then we can learn, grow, heal, and thrive together.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Amen to that. And this is what the Sister Circles is about. We have to put these things in a circle. Any of our concerns that we might have, there's always somebody there with a solution. There's always somebody around. There's always, as soon as there's a book I read called The Course in Miracles. He says, as soon as a problem is created, simultaneously a solution is also created for it. So, and this circle here is to encourage that type of thinking to any of our sisters who feel maybe perhaps lost in this case. Would you not say so, Laura?
I will absolutely say so.
Yeah. So that is the genesis of the idea of creating the Sister Circle podcast. And yeah.
I'm keen, like, if we explore a bit, like, if we go with the theme of this series, which is the healing powers of stories.
Yeah.
Like, keen to understand from your perspective, like, how did it feel, and how does it feel like to be in a circle where women can share that openly?
What do you mean by how does it feel?
Like, how does it feel? Like, literally what I mean.
Oh, it feels good. It feels good that we're able to do that. And I understand your concern, and a lot of people's concern actually, about being that vulnerable. And as much as the sister circle, a women's circle in general, is healing, our internal circle, it has to be accompanying this type of work, like this type of activity. We have to be grounded within ourselves to the point where we are not afraid to go outside of ourselves and ask for what it is that we need.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I still think, and that was still true for the event. So I think there was like 14 ladies, and I knew all the ladies. They were all part of my circle. And some were new, for example, you were just meeting them on the day. But because I knew those ladies, and I know like the kindness that they have. Mm-hmm. So I know that we were still having a really safe space.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting is I had a lot. Some of the girls were showing some anxiety about me telling them like, hey, we are gonna do a dating wrap up, and they're like, well, like, I don't know some of those ladies, and I'm like, and I was trying always, and then like it was funny because like we had a WhatsApp group, and like I set up a WhatsApp group for them, like to ask questions, to prepare the thing, and then it still didn't take off the fact that the girl were just like messaging me directly, which was quite frustrating because like it was so many messages, and I'm just like, girl, why are you not asking your question in the group? Anyway, but I think it's because like there was this anxiety as well.
Absolutely.
A little bit at the beginning.
And anxiety isn't something that we should shame anybody for having, regardless of what it is that you're feeling, your question. Look, I think in order to feel safe, as a therapist, I would always tell my client, I cannot tell you that this is a safe space, because that robs you of using your own instincts to determine if this is a safe space or not. You have to check with yourself if you are okay. Because at the end of the day, me sharing what I share, anybody who chose to share what they shared, I can tell you, this is a safe space. There's no judgment. Nobody judge. It doesn't mean that people aren't judging you from the inside. This is why I was referring to the internal work being so important, that if you are willing to share your story, that you are standing in some type of conviction about where you are, and the judgment of others doesn't necessarily, obviously it helps if people aren't judgmental towards you. You feel a lot more safer. But gauge with yourself, I would say. People should gauge. We should always feel, what am I safe with myself to share this story?
Yeah.
Like to share this, but am I ready? And maybe I haven't worked through this narrative on my own, and maybe I'm still carrying a bit of judgment, because once you once you don't have huge judgment about your own story, you don't really care about people's judgment.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't. And that's not to say that we shouldn't be kind to each other. And because sometimes it works the other way. You can share your story and people can receive it really well. And that helps you a little bit. But I think ultimately, gauge with yourself and see and gauge your own personal readiness.
Yeah. And I think like what I wanted to add as well on top of that is like, yes, you can, you like, I like when you say like you definitely need to use your own instinct to see if you feel safe to share your story. But I think like being able, like, yes, you can say, yes, this is a safe environment, but that doesn't mean much as long as people can experience it. But you can also like make sure that you're providing at least like a platform that is going to be safe, free of judgment.
Yeah.
And I think like, and I want to bring it back to like the intent of this podcast, where like, I think like, first of all, we will try to be quite vulnerable and, you know, like listen by so many people with different perspectives, and some of those perspectives will be completely opposite to mine. Steph and I have like some perspective, but there is also things that we're both single, we don't have kids, we both corporate, and maybe, you know, like we will want to talk with some women that may have kids, women that are stay-at-home mom, like, and that's a job, or women, you know, like with different sexuality, or even women with like not like the woman that we define as women today in our society, with different type of gender. I think we want to explore all those different.
Okay. This is just an open conversation, and it's not to say that I have any discrimination against trans people, trans women, or trans men. I don't, but I do think that where my opinion lie, that there is a distinction between trans women and biological women. But I think it's an interesting debate, because I don't believe that a lot of biological women believe that trans women are women, but I don't agree with that either. And I do agree.
Sorry, what did you say? You don't believe that
I do believe that there are a lot of biological women who are not welcoming to trans women. I'm not one of those people who share that opinion. I do believe that there is I don't necessarily believe gender is fluid. I don't. I believe that there are different aspects of how you experience gender. And I look, it's a complex topic. It's just an opinion of mine. And, you know, it's and one of those opinions that I struggle, because it just changes the meaning slightly. And I don't ever want to put it in any category of period or not having period, boobs and not having boobs, hormone. It's not that, because being a woman isn't as simple as that. Like, it's not but I also think that being a woman is not as simple as putting on a pair of heels and makeup. You know, I don't believe it's as simple as that either. So I don't even want to.
Yeah, but that's like, I think like a lot of trans women will tell you, like, it's not just about putting makeup and
No, but some of them would justify it as that, just by the conversation that I've had over the years. But I'm also not one of those people who want to, you know, characterize womanhood as you have period and you have natural boobs, or you have whatever. No, because it's not as simple as that. Not every woman's period is the same. Not every woman even have period. A lot of my friends didn't have their period until they were 16. I started at 11. So
I started at 17.
So it would be great to hear some of your perspective with or what you think of this. I'm absolutely open for people to be who they are, who they believe they are, and live their life as they are. But like anything, defining boundaries are important for something. And that's something that we're going to discuss here, because we still need definition somewhere, because it structures us to an extent. And so that's just to be open and transparent with you guys. That's just what is coming up as a natural thought, like, for me. So where do we stand? Again, as I said, I'm open to listen and grow, and I'm open for my mind to be changed if that's the case. Another thing that I wanted to address about, let's just put this as a marker to a different segment, about femininity, and what a lot of the time, some of the women's circle that I've attended before, it was very crucial to like your feminine it was very crucial to use your feminine energy, and that's just something that I awakened to, maybe I like to say 2021, because I've been independent for a long time. I feel, as much as I would wear dresses and makeup, and I felt like I had to oppress a lot of my feminine energy. And when I was in a relationship, I was trying to hide some of my masculine energy, so I wasn't really balanced. But I really loved my masculine energy because it allowed me to go out there and get it and provide for myself. I really loved being in it, to the point where I really enjoyed being single, because I could do that. Like I really thrived, like, not to be this little lady to be taken care of, right? And it's only in recent years that I've been trying to embrace it. And when I went into the last women's circle that I went to, they spoke a lot about that, because we can still do all of those things without sacrificing our feminine energy. We can have a real balance of it. Even now, I just opened the shop. Like last week, I had to be putting myself in dresses because I was just going straight into my masculine energy, speaking to contractors, speaking to lawyers. Like I felt like I had to embody this man in a way that I did it, right? So
that's so interesting, because like in my job, I first of all, I like mostly interact mostly only with male, and like like I'm gonna have this really like a this attitude where I'm just gonna have to be like, hey, we need to do that way, let's do that. And sometimes like I have to fight a little bit to have my voice heard on the table, but in those moments I don't, if anything, I feel that I'm using my feminine energy. 15 years ago, I was really young, and I was the president of my student engineering school, which is equivalent to uni. And I was doing this event. Funny enough, it was an auction where we were selling the engineer guys, to the girls, just to spend the night with them, to have a little dance, and mostly we were doing fundraising for charity. It was really funny. It was really really nice. But then I was in an engineering school, so like in engineering school you have like 10 women for 100 guys. That's what happened in our classes. So then the event are mostly a lot of men, and I was I had this team of 20 people that I was leading for a year, of 20, and then within those 20 there were 16 guys, 4 girls. And I remember guys, especially when we have a party, they like to drink, and then sometimes they just start to be a bit intoxicated. And one was starting to be a bit too much. So I had to handle him. And that's so interesting because I knew that there were a lot of guys, there was going to be a lot of alcohol. We had some security guys to be there because it was quite a big event. But I think he was in his, the security guy, and he was a black guy. I will explain why. But he was a bit on the side. And I just arrived, and one of the guy was being too drunk. And I knew him, and I'm coming to him, and I'm getting him by the
Grabbing him by the neck.
Yeah, I grab him by the neck, and I'm like, "You calm down, otherwise, I'm gonna get you out of here." And then, I didn't even think. I was just in my mode, I'm gonna fix that.
Yeah.
Then after the security man came in, and then he handled it. But then the next day, he sent me an email. It was so funny, and he was like, "Oh my God, I was so impressed to see you handling all those guys, managing even those people that were intoxicated." He just told me it was beautiful to see a beautiful black woman handling that. And I think he could he was even prouder because I was black, and everyone was white in my school, so we were two black people and two mixed people. Anyway, that's not the purpose. But what I remember about that is if anything, I just felt my feminine energy. And I'm probably, some people are going to listen to this and they're going to think well, Laura, what the hell? But just to bring it back to the purpose of the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're diving into the feminine, masculine energy, I think it's a good point though, because we call it the Sister Circle podcast for a reason.
Yeah.
Not that we want to be discriminatory with men, but we really want to make it a space for women to be able to share their stories, and men are welcome to listen, maybe learn, or send us some information, or send us some of their comments, so then we can learn too.
And this is the very unorthodox way of doing this, is the circle. And because it's public, because it's a podcast, we can't keep it exclusively women. That's why Laura is saying this. But traditionally in a women's circle, the indigenous women's business, men are not allowed. Similarly, women are not allowed in the men's business circle either. So, and there are some real crucial reasons for that, why it's done that way, hence why it complicates things when other middle genders are introduced into this, because traditionally there are things that there are essential reasoning for this. But again, I am sure, in the indigenous community particularly, there are also a lot of groups of women, or trans women in the group, and I would be curious to know what they do when it comes to the women and the women business. So if they join in the circle, or if they have to go into a different circle, because the women business, I'm not sure exactly what goes on in it. We're curious to have an indigenous guest to educate us a bit more on that. So I think this is unorthodox, but because it's in the public sphere, we have to welcome some viewpoint.
Yeah, I agree. And what would you say for male that are actually listening?
As my facilitator for my previous women's circle would say, next questions, please.
No, seriously.
Next question, please. We cannot bring the men's business in the women's circle.
I'm not talking about bringing the men's business, but
we can't even address them.
Making it public.
We can talk about them, but we can't even really address them because as I said, it's without a doubt for us women, it's inevitable for us to bring men into our conversation.
Well, I'm not saying bringing men into a conversation. I'm just saying, like, the reality is that, like, this is going to be on podcast platform, and then, like, for women, but also men to be able to
Well,
listen.
everybody's welcome to listen, and this is not we hate men on this platform, but this is an exclusive.
We don't. I don't.
No, we don't. I don't either. But this is exclusively a women's podcast, so I don't really have anything to address men about, because I think this is about women. Like, of course, we can talk about men in the context of our relationship with men, but to address the men.
Okay, and for the men that are actually listening, what's the message for them for this podcast?
Well, like I said, there is no message for the men, but it's almost like there are a lot of podcasts that I've come across, or TV shows or movies, that I'm not necessarily the target audience. However, I extract from that whatever it is that I want to learn from that. So if there are any men who want to learn something, who want to gain something, like, we can't keep force feeding men information about women that they should learn. As I've said to you before, Laura, we do coexist here, but somehow there's always stuff that we need to learn about men, we need to tell men to learn about women. Women are a vital part of our society. It is within their own interest to learn about women based on whatever it is that they are trying to figure out in their women. So I would say, do your own homework. We cannot force feed anybody any information. You take from it whatever is important to you.
True, absolutely true. And I will add on top of that, like, male and female are more than welcome to listen to this podcast.
Everyone is welcome to listen to this podcast. Like I said before, this is very unorthodox. So because it is public, and we can't prevent anybody from listening to it. And to be honest, even if I'm not a target audience at any medium that I consume, if I can access it, I would still listen to it if I thought the information on there were vital for me to learn from. So that's why, even if this was discriminating towards men, if you were interested about it, then you would listen to it anyway. Nobody needs to give you permission.
True, absolutely true. Absolutely true. But I think, like, what I mostly wanted to say was, for male that are listening to us, thank you and welcome in our circle.
From a distance. And just before Laura breaks all the circle, before we even get it started, okay, how about we just end the pod here? Okay,
Well,
we've reached, because we're getting into this means that we've reached the 360 degree, and it's now come to an end.
I think, like, just to address, looking forward to continue the conversation next week. As I was explaining the format of our series again. So this was episode 1. We will have our episode 2 of our series, where we will keep on diving into, like, the healing power of stories, and, like, a circle of women
For women.
how that works. And then, like, we're just, like, getting ourselves prepared for, like, our guest. Super excited to have our guest. We're not announcing it yet, but that is coming in the guest spot, actually.
Yes, and you would certainly will like it. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a bunch of you that will like it. But this podcast is about learning and growing. And as I can see, Laura and I are going to learn a lot just from talking here. So, well, that's the close of this week's circle. If you have taken anything from this conversation, do let us know in the comment section. If you have any question you like our opinion on, you can email us on the 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘@gmail.com. That's the 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘@gmail.com. Join us next week in a new circle. Until then, have a great week.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.